times I've put good, before, because I'm like, oh, okay, I'm feeling good to start the day, and then when I sit, I'm like okay or bad or whatever afterwards. It asks you how you're feeling. So thank you for validating that with that quote. Um, but my other question, or my question is, so dealing with people that are very close to you that put up walls and um, don't know how to deal with their own stuff, and also, you know, myself having to deal with my stuff, and the turmoil that they're going through, and I find myself kind of serving tea to the thoughts that come in and the emotions that come in, when I think about these close people that I love, that I want to be around, and it's not being reciprocated. Um, and it's a relationship that you really want, but it's the other person's just not ready, or they're I don't know what the reasoning is, or what exactly is going on. But I tell myself a lot of stories about it. So how do you kind of work with that, in particular with like close family members that you want to have a relationship with, but you just can't seem to ever jive at the same time, and all that stuff?
Don't make any stories. There's no reason. It's not your job. And for whom? So sometimes, yeah, people are what they are, and you are what you are. And just always in your mind, for whom? You know, they're doing what they need to do, and it may seem to you that, oh, that's the wrong thing for them to do. But it's not your job to change them. Your job is to love them. And sometimes loving means stepping away. So that's it. You know, I have friends where their children haven't spoken to them for like 20 years, 30 years. They have grandkids they've never met. And maybe they'll never see their kid again. And I have other friends where maybe for 10 years, 15 years, their kid didn't want anything to do with them. And I remember my brother stayed away from my mother. He wouldn't have anything to do with her for a number of years. So this just, people are doing what they feel they have to do. And I don't mean that they're thinking, it's just like this instinct. They can't deal with it in the moment. So just love them and give them room and give them space. And don't make stories. Don't make stories. You're talking about family members, but, you know, when we have romantic attractions to people, I mean, I'm old. I've been married for 100 years. This will probably never happen again in my life. But when I was young, sometimes I'd be really attracted to somebody. I'd really want them to be with me. I'd want them to be attracted back, and they weren't. And if you go up to them and you say, "How come? How come you're not attracted to me?" What kind of answer can they give? Because you're too tall, before because you're too short. I mean, what can they say? I don't like the color of your sweater. You know, these are just stories people make up. So you just have to respect, and you have to love. And for whom? For whom do we live our life? That's the most important thing. And when Zen Master Bong, who died very suddenly, massive heart attack in the middle of giving an interview to a 12-year-old girl in Hong Kong, killed over with a heart attack and died like that. He was in his early 50s. I think he was 52. Um, but when he was a young man, Siho Yao, and he was just starting to practice, and he wrote to Zen Master Sung San, and he said, "What is the fast road to Zen?" Siho was famous in the school for really, punching back at Zen Master Sung San. And so he wrote in this postcard, "What is the fast road to Zen?" Which is kind of a rude question. And Zen Master Sung-san wrote back and said, not for me. So it's not about us. You say not for me, and people think, oh, that means I shouldn't do it. No, that's not what it means. It means it's not about us. It's just like this quote, which since you started recording after I read it, I have to read it again. It's just like this quote from the Tibetan teacher Dzongtsar Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche said, the aim of far too many teachings these days is to make people feel good, and even some Buddhist masters are beginning to sound like New Age apostles. Their talks are entirely devoted to validating the manifestation of ego and endorsing the rightness of our feelings, neither of which have anything to do with the teachings we find in the Pith instructions. So if you are only concerned about feeling good, you are far better off having a full body massage or listening to some uplifting or life-affirming music than receiving Dharma teachings, which were definitely not designed to cheer you up. On the contrary, the Dharma was devised specifically to expose your failings and make you feel awful. So it's not about me. And before the recording started, I said, yeah, you got to look at the crap and you got to say, wow, that's really crappy, which doesn't make you feel good, before you can cut through it. So it's not about you, it's not about anybody on this screen. Our practice is not about us, it's about helping this world. And the first step in that is respecting this world. Okay? So just love these people, and things will unfold the way they unfold. And they may or may not unfold the way you want them to. Good luck.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Hi, Judy. This is Diego from the Dharma Room. I have a question for you.
Sure.
So, I like what you shared. Sometimes at work, I will let them know I'm going on a Zen retreat, and their first response is, "Oh, that sounds so nice. That
Yeah.
sounds so relaxing. Have a good." um, and it's important that we kind of understand it's not about always feeling happy or joyful, but kind of the other side to that too is sometimes we can turn maybe our suffering, our discomfort into our religion. Oh, I'm suffering so much, I'm doing so good at that. And I'm getting flashbacks to my Catholic upbringing now. So could you talk a little bit more about kind of that cutting through both the suffering we experience and also the joys that we want to get out of doing this kind of thing?
Yeah, so don't make anything, don't want anything. Okay? So just let it unfold. I mean, yeah, I know that thing, you say you're going on a Zen retreat. Oh, that sounds so great. I need a Zen retreat. No, you don't. You wouldn't survive it. But so we all make this story, right? We all make this story, and yeah, we get really attached to our suffering sometimes. I'm this person who suffers. My my husband died, or my mother died, or I have this horrible disease, and that becomes your story. And you're like locked in this little box, about your own suffering. So that's also, that's not for me. That's also about you. You're just trapped in your own mind. So don't be trapped. I don't know if that's answering your question.
It does, thank you. Sometimes there's this feeling of, oh, I'm suffering so much and making it so not about me. I'm such a good Zen student. And then you're just making it more about you, and that's kind of funny and silly. There's that.
Exactly.
So thank you, Judy.
Exactly. In case this is being too gloomy, I want to say something that I'm going to be talking about on the online Sangha class. What do they call it? 360 Zen or something tomorrow, which is the Kangan. I'm going to flip this little quote from this Tibetan teacher. This Kangan, everyday mind is the true way. So it's oh God, is it Namchan and Joju? Yeah. So so Joju says to Namchan, what is the true way? And Namchan says, everyday mind is the true way. And Joju says, well, then should I keep it or not? And Namchan says, what does he say? He's basically says you can't keep it, you know. And then Joju says, if I don't keep it, how can I understand the true way? And Namshan says, the true way is not understanding. Understanding is illusion. Not understanding is blankness. If you attain the true way without form, it is like space, clear and void. And then he says, so why do you make right and wrong? And at this, Joju wakes up. So this everyday mind is the true way, and people really don't understand that. They think everyday mind is boring. That means the true way is boring. But the true way is absolutely wondrous. It's absolutely amazing. I mean, everybody look around, not at the screen. Everybody look just at something, like I have a pair of shoes over here. Look at whatever you're looking at, a pair of shoes, glass of water, the light on the floor, whatever you're looking at, just look at it. And without judgment, just look at it, like an artist looks at it, like a photographer looks at it. Just look at it. Just see for what it is. And you can see that it is completely amazing and wonderful. So that's everyday mind. And it's beyond feeling good and feeling bad. And it's not about you. It's just whatever you look at, give it the fullness of your being. Just the fullness of your being in that moment. That's when Buddha saw the star, and he and the star were not separate. So just in that moment, you come together with whatever it is that is in your life in that moment. Just come together with it completely. And, the Dharma is always speaking to us. The teachings are infinite does not mean that the teachings in the books are infinite. It means that every moment, the universe is speaking to us. Actually, every moment the universe is speaking, it's not speaking to us. We're part of the universe. Every moment the universe is speaking. Can we open our minds to listen? Can we open our minds to see? So that's everyday mind. Feeling awful? Everyday mind? Are they the same or different, right? Okay. So are there any other questions?
Judy, this is Nancy.
Yes.
Um,
I know, I can see you.
Carol brought up, she gave some quotes, and one of them was about don't know, which is an old teaching phrase, but could you talk about that? Because we get a lot of ideas about that.
Yeah.
Also, if there's any
Don't know
possibility of increasing your volume, it's a little bit low.
I have to move closer. Is this better? Okay. Yeah, my computer is on a bunch of books which are on a chair, and now that's kind of cantilevered off the chair, so let's hope that it doesn't fall down. All right. Yeah, so don't know, that's the same mind I was just talking about. So don't know is this, what is this? What is this? That's don't know. Not, oh, there's a bunch of shoes over there. Don't know is, what is this? So I'll give you two stories about don't know. And one is one time I was sitting a retreat with Bobby, Barbara Rhodes, Zen Master Son Hyang. I was sitting, or Song Hyang. I was sitting a retreat with her in Colorado in this. It was actually a Baptist church camp that had been rented so that we could do a retreat there. And we would take, during walking meditation, we would sometimes walk, through the woods and the fields and do a very long, like 40-minute walking meditation. And one time we're walking, and there was this kind of field, and then on the other side, all of a sudden these elk appeared. Not deer, but elk. And of course we all stopped. Whoa, elk, whoa, cool. So we all stopped. And we're looking at them, and they're looking it up, these big, big eyes. That kind of animal, they have these really huge eyes. And they're just standing there, looking at us. And then later, in a Dharma talk, Bobby asked everybody, what were they thinking, the elk? And I said something really stupid. And then somebody, and I wish I remembered who, I think it was Marilyn Pettit, said, "Don't know." So they're just like, we're going, "Wow, elk!" And they're going like, "Wow, what is this?" And then the other don't know story is I once helped a friend give birth. She wanted a friend to be with her, and her husband was there too, and of course the obstetrical nurse and the obstetrician. So there were like 4 people helping her, and the baby came out, and just the head came out. And it was very interesting because my friend had decided not to know the gender of her child. And so we had no idea. The head's out, and for some reason the body took a long time. It didn't come out as quickly as it usually does. And so this head is there, and we don't know whether it's a boy or a girl. And I was really interested watching my mind, like, why did I care? And it was like I was really uncomfortable. I wanted to know. That's another story. But this head is there, and the eyes are open. It's not, babies are not born blind. That's a total false myth. And the eyes are open. And so, it's just, all you can see is this head. And the kid is gone like, like that. Like, that's don't know. That's don't know. So, yeah. What more can you say about don't know? Just like, what is this? What is this? This great question. So that's all I've got to say about don't know. Any other questions?
I have a question. Hi,
Yes.
Sunim. How do you I don't know if I'm going to say it right. How do you fight the tendency of finding distractions? Like, for example, if you're bored doing an activity, or the present moment is boring, like you said, it can be. So how do you fight that tendency that we have, like that little voice in your head that wants to find something else to do so that you are not bored? Or if you're doing something that is that you find uncomfortable to do, I don't know, like household chores or something, and you want to distract your mind by listening to a podcast at the same time. That's what I do. So how do you fight that tendency? Because it makes you do 2 things at the same time. And I imagine that is like another story that we tell ourselves, like boredom is another story. So that's my question.
Okay, so first of all, don't fight anything. Don't fight your mind. Because if you fight your mind, both you and your mind will lose. How can you fight your mind? It's ridiculous. That's like my thumb fighting my index finger. It's ridiculous, So what's wrong with listening to a podcast while you're washing the dishes or vacuuming or whatever? What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, there's this saying, Before Zen, when I ate breakfast, I read the paper. And then after I practiced Zen, when I ate breakfast, I ate breakfast. When I read the paper, I read the paper. But now I've been practicing Zen for a long time. So when I eat breakfast and read the paper, I eat breakfast and read the paper. Okay? So don't make anything. Don't make anything. Just, so boring, not boring, that's not the question. The question is, what are you doing? If the dishes have to be washed, then you wash the dishes. It's not whether it's boring or not boring. If you want to turn on a podcast, turn on a podcast. If you don't want to turn a podcast, don't turn on a podcast, just as long as the dishes get washed. If you're sitting there scrolling through your Facebook feed and you say, oh, this is boring, then for God's sake, get off Facebook because it does you no good. So it's not about whether you're bored or not bored. It's about what are you doing? And is what you're doing something that in some way is worth doing, whatever worth doing means. I hate to say things like that because then that puts in, like Namchan said, why do you make right and wrong? Why do you make worth or not worth? But we all know what I'm talking about, So what is the direction of your life? And then don't worry about whether it's boring or not boring. So boring is a wonderful teacher. So when I first started practice at Cambridge Zen Center in 1976, and it was it wasn't where it is now. It was this little funky house in Alston that had like 2-story house. And the Dharma room was on the ground floor, but the ground floor there was like a little rise on one side of the house, so that if you were sitting by the window in the Dharma room, it was actually it felt like it was on the second floor because the land kind of, went down that way. And I remember, so on Wednesday nights, they would have 2 sittings, not just one, but 2 sittings. And I would force myself to go to both. And I was the only one who did that. So the head Dharma teacher would have to stay. It was like, oh God, Judy's here. Now I'm going to have to stay for both sittings because everyone else would leave, but I would stay. And I would be incredibly bored, just incredibly bored. I'd be so bored, I'd want to scream. I'd be so bored that I'd say to myself, I wouldn't say to myself, I'm bored, I could walk out the door. What I would be thinking of, I'm so bored, I could break this window and jump out the window, which was like really stupid because I could have just walked out the door. But, it was just, this boring thing. But it was really clear to me that I had to live through that I had to look at that. Like that quote, about making us feel awful. I had to look at that feeling of being bored. And I had to not let it run my life. Zen Master Bon Hae had this great saying. He'd say, you tell your backseat driver, shut up! Like that. So, that's our backseat driver. I like this. I don't like this. And then we follow it. Oh, I like this. Oh, I don't like this, and then we follow it. So, yeah, I'm bored. So we want to not be bored, but don't pay attention to that. Just sit through it. Don't let it control you. Don't fight it. Like the quote Carol gave from Shunryu Suzuki, just let it drift in, let it drift out. Maybe it wants to stay a while. Maybe it wants to sit on the living room couch and make itself a pot of tea. That's okay. Just let it be. And meanwhile, in my case, I'm practicing just, what am I? What am I? What am I? What am I? Don't know. What am I? Don't know. Just, okay, I'm bored. What am I? Don't know. Yeah, I'm bored. Just, it's okay. It doesn't matter. Just do what you're doing. Yeah, washing dishes is boring. Wash the dishes. Making the bed is boring. Make the bed. Actually, none of that stuff is boring. If you're really paying attention, nothing is boring. But it's really hard to do that, So, yeah. So don't fight it. Just, what is the direction? That's what's important, okay? So, thank you. Are there any other questions? Norlis, you have a question? Because you're unmuted, so I hope you have a question. Nope. We tried. Is there anyone with a question?
She's talking. I think she's trying to
Oh.
unmute.
Okay. Yeah, I can't see your mouth because of the way your device is. Norlis, you can put your question in the chat if you want, if you're having difficulties.
It's a struggle.
Oh, I just heard you.
I think you heard me.
Oh, okay.
I'll ask a question.
Okay. And meanwhile, Norlis, see if you can put your question in the chat
Yeah.
after I answer Nancy. Okay.
Judy, you were a university professor for your working life and a mathematician, are a mathematician, and these jobs have they actually entail thinking. And how do you work with thinking so it's just thinking and not anything extra? We get this idea that thinking is maybe not so good, but could you talk about that?
Thinking's a tool. Use a hammer when you need a hammer. You need a screwdriver when you need a screwdriver. So thinking is a tool, that's all. And thinking isn't what we think it is. How's that for a grammatical thing? You know, we have this idea of thinking, but I'll tell you about mathematics. It's very interesting. Doing mathematics is a lot like working on kungans, where, you know, when you work on a kungan, if you try to consciously think about it, you get nowhere. But if you just look at it, so, you know, I have this engagement ring, which has this sapphire on it, and it has these two little diamonds, and you probably can't see it, but when you turn it, it reflects light in different ways. And you just, you know, if you're bored, you can turn it and see how the light changes. I used to do that during faculty meetings a lot. And the classic thing is turning a pearl in your hand. That's the classic image. So that's really how you do mathematics. So it's not what you think it is. But yeah, thinking's not a problem. Just don't attach to it. Don't hold to it. Use it as a tool and don't hold to it. Now I have two questions, so I better answer them. Let's see. First of all, from Neuralist, how about when our thoughts make us uncomfortable, or maybe expressing them makes your loved ones uncomfortable? Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with our own discomfort. Sometimes discomfort is essential in changing. I remember when I was young, and I was a very, very disturbed and unstable person, and I had this amazing therapist, and she had me do this exercise where I had to pretend to be teaching her something. She was going to be a child, and I had to pretend to teach her something, and suddenly she imitated someone who was profoundly autistic. And I remember thinking, oh my God, okay, I'll teach her how to, you know, use a button, how to button and unbutton her clothes. That was my idea. And so I very, you know, patiently tried to teach her how to button and unbutton her clothes. And this went on for like 40 minutes or something. And finally she said, you never hugged me. I was in distress and you never hugged me. And that just hit me like, boom, and I walked out of there just completely shaken. Like, oh my God, I am this terrible person. And it was really hard, and it was really uncomfortable. And it was really essential. That goes back to the business of Buddhism makes us feel awful, right? My therapist made me feel awful. And later she apologized when I told her. I said, no, this is the most wonderful thing you did, because I realized I have to change, I have to really change and not try to protect myself anymore, So our discomfort can be wonderful. It tells us something when we're uncomfortable. But why make anyone else uncomfortable? Why express a thought that's going to make someone else uncomfortable? If it's really going to help them, sure. Like sometimes, you have a friend, the old thing where you have a friend who's like some kind of addict, and you all have to get around in a circle around this person and say, you can't go on this way. We can't support you anymore in the way we've been supporting you, because look what you're doing to yourself. Sometimes that has to happen, and sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. But generally, expressing thoughts that make the people around you uncomfortable, why do that? I mean, these days, sometimes you have to. Like, I have friends that I say, you are not vaccinated. I will not see you in person. I love you. I care about you. I will not see you in person. They're like, you're, discriminating it. I have to protect myself and my husband and my family and the people that I do get in contact with, and so I cannot see you. And yeah, it makes them uncomfortable. But I have to do that, or at least I think I have to do that. Who knows? But I feel I have to do that, and so I do that. But why? That's always the question, why? If it's just to express your opinion, don't bother. Your opinion's not worth it. My opinion's not worth it. Nobody's opinion is worth it. Buddha's opinion isn't worth it. If it's just to say, I think you look really bad in that color. Green doesn't look good on you, Why do that? Let them be, right? So I hope that answered your question. These questions are always so general that I'm never sure, what's behind them. Okay, and Erica has a question. How does Zen come into play when you're at a crossroads between two paths? I'm not sure what you mean by that, but if you mean that there are answers in Zen, there are no answers in Zen. Zen is a methodology. And Zen practice helps us get a stronger center and helps us not get stuck, and helps us believe in ourselves. But Zen does not tell you do this or do that. A lot of people will tell you that Zen tells you do this or do that, but Zen doesn't do that. So it's not Zen ideas that come into play. It's your Zen practice that gives you the capacity to deal with the situation, whatever the situation is. So good luck. Are there any other questions? I think it's probably about time we quit, right? So thank you, everybody. This was really great. It's wonderful to see old friends and people that I don't know that well. Hi, Edith. And hi, Gary, and hi, everyone in the Dharma room. And yeah, so thank you, everybody, and practice hard.